Dime equals Zealy Plaza, 12:30 in the afternoon. A president who got elected in a year ending in 0 is about to become the 7th one in a row to die in office. Before him, 6 others fell the exact same way, on the exact same 20-year schedule, going back over 100 years. This is the curse that killed 7 U.S. presidents explained, and one of these 7 almost didn't count. But first, let's rewind to where the whole thing started. The setup is simple. Every president elected in a year ending in 0, 1840, 1860, 1880, 1900, 1920, 1940, 1960, died in office. 7 for 7, no misses. Pop history calls it Tecumseh's Curse, tied to a war chief who supposedly got burned by a broken deal back in 1811. I can't hand you a signed copy of that curse, sir. Nobody can. What we do have is the body count, and the body count is very, very real. So we're doing this as a countdown, from, probably nothing, all the way up to, okay, that's actually terrifying. Number 7. Warren Harding, elected in 1920, died August 2nd, 1923, in a San Francisco hotel room, in the middle of a cross-country tour. This is our least spooky death on the whole list, and honestly, that's kind of the point. No assassin, no mystery illness with a weird backstory, just a stressed-out president on a brutal travel schedule whose heart gave out. His funeral train rolled into Washington 5 days later. If this is a curse, sir, it starts with a medical chart, not a lightning bolt. Sometimes the scariest pattern in history starts with the least scary entry on the list. Almost funny, if you squint. Number 6. William Henry Harrison. And 'cause this is where it actually begins, let's slow down. Elected in 1840 in a landslide, 234 electoral votes to 60. 1 month later, he's dead. Shortest presidency in American history. You've probably heard the story. Gave a 2-hour inaugural speech in the freezing cold, no coat, caught pneumonia, died. Cute story. Also, probably wrong. Newer research points toward enteric or typhoid fever, a fancy way of saying he likely got sick off contaminated water or bad sanitation in a White House that, back then, basically had swamp plumbing. So here's your first real debate. Was it the cold speech, or was it the water? Historians genuinely argue this one both ways, and honestly, neither answer makes it less unsettling. Sir, if the first cursed death might just be bad White House plumbing, that is terrifying in a very unmagical way. My wife, Miss Flappy, has been saying for 200 years that the real curse of Washington is the tap water. She might be onto something. Number 5. Franklin D. Roosevelt. Elected in 1940, then re-elected in 44. On April 12, 1945, 83 days into a 4th term nobody else in history has ever gotten, he's sitting for a portrait, signing papers, and he suddenly says his head hurts. Slumps forward. Gone by 3:35 that afternoon. A massive stroke. Medically, this is one of the least mysterious deaths on our whole list, but 'cause of the timing, it might be one of the eeriest. World War II is basically won. Hitler's dead in 12 days. And right as the finish line comes into view, the guy who led the whole thing for over a decade just doesn't make it. This is where you stop talking medicine and start talking timing, sir. Number 4. William McKinley. Elected in 1900, shot on September 6, 1901, at a public expo in Buffalo, New York. Basically the World's Fair of its day. Here's the twist. It wasn't instant. For about a week, it actually looked like he might pull through. Then infection set in, and he died on September 14th. One of the last things recorded from him was this: "It is God's way. His will be done, not ours." By this point, sir, The curse has upgraded from bad luck to a full public event security failure. 'Cause think about it. A sitting president, shaking hands with strangers at a public reception, no real security to speak of. I was there. I'm an immortal eagle. I've seen every single one of these. Doesn't get any less rough with practice. Number 3. Abraham Lincoln, elected in 1860. Shot at Ford's Theater on the night of April 14, 1865, around 10:15 p.m., during a play. Dead by 7:22 the next morning. Here's the detail that makes this one land different. The Civil War had basically just ended. Lee surrendered 5 days earlier. The country's catching its breath. Everyone's exhausted but relieved, and then the president, who held the whole thing together, gets murdered in a public theater. You don't need conspiracy theories to make this one hit hard, sir. The real, documented version is already brutal enough on its own. Coincidence stops looking cute right about here. Number 2. James Garfield, elected in 1880. Shot on July 2, 1881, at a train station in Washington. And here's the part that separates this from every other entry so far. He didn't die for 80 days. 80 days of doctors probing the wound with unwashed fingers trying to find the bullet. Infection setting in, his body slowly breaking down while the whole country watched and hoped. He finally died on September 19, 1881. Many historians argue, and this is our second and last debate, so let's use it, that Garfield might have actually survived a cleaner, less invasive treatment. Not a guarantee, but a real, serious argument. 'Cause sometimes the bullet doesn't kill you, sir. The hospital does. That's not a curse. That's just 1881 medicine being genuinely terrifying on its own. 6 down. This next one is the reason we're all still talking about this in the first place. Number 1. John F. Kennedy, elected in 1960. And by now you already know the shape of this one, 'cause it's the story that turned a spooky campfire pattern into something even skeptics quietly do the math on. Dealey Plaza, Dallas, Texas. 12:30 in the afternoon, on November 22, 1963. Shots ring out. He's pronounced dead by 1 o'clock. Lyndon Johnson is sworn in aboard Air Force One at 2:38 that same afternoon, standing next to Kennedy's widow, still in her blood-stained clothes. 2 days later, the man accused of pulling the trigger gets shot himself, live, on national television, before he ever stands trial. This is the 7th cursed president in a row, 7 for 7, across 120 years, with 0 exceptions. You don't need me to invent anything here, sir. The verified timeline alone is enough to make anybody's skin crawl. This is the death that turned an old legend into something the whole country still argues about. But the pattern wasn't done trying. The epilogue. Ronald Reagan, elected in 1980, another 0 year, right on schedule. March 30th, 1981, outside the Washington Hilton. Shots fired. One bullet ricochets off the presidential limo and hits Reagan under the left arm. It misses his heart by about an inch. An inch, sir. His Secret Service agent makes a split-second call to redirect straight to the hospital instead of following the original plan, and that decision probably saves his life. And here's where we finally get our tonal exhale. 'Cause Reagan, recovering, in genuine pain, with a bullet that nearly finished the job, still cracks jokes. To the surgeons about to operate on him, he reportedly says, "Please tell me you're Republicans." To his wife Nancy, he says, "Honey, I forgot to duck." Later, writing about it himself, he put it about as plainly as anyone possibly could. Getting shot hurts. After 6 straight tragedies, that's the release valve. The streak that ran 7 for 7 for over a century finally missed, by about an inch, and by one very good decision under pressure. My wife, Miss Flappy, always says the real curse breaker wasn't luck. It was somebody doing their job exceptionally well in about 4 seconds. I'm inclined to agree with her. And honestly, that's rare. She's usually right, and I hate admitting it on camera. One more, quick before we go. May 10th, 2005, Tbilisi, Georgia. A grenade gets thrown toward President George W. Bush during a public speech. It lands about 60 feet from the podium. It does not go off. A handkerchief wrapped around it jammed the firing pin. So, did the curse actually end with Reagan? Or did it just start missing? I'm a freaking immortal eagle, and even I don't have a clean answer for that one. 7 presidents, one brutal 120-year pattern, and a president who beat it by about an inch. Whether you call that a curse or just the ugliest coincidence in American history is honestly up to you, sir. From a theater seat to a motorcade, from one Vice President Johnson taking the oath to another Vice President Johnson taking the oath decades later, this is the insane coincidences between Lincoln and JFK. Click right here and keep watching.